Robert Isom, the CEO of American Airlines, sat in his corner office in Dallas, the skyline a patchwork of metal and glass that glimmered under the midday sun. He was a man of considerable stature in the airline industry, known for his sharp suits and sharper business acumen. But today, he felt a restlessness that gnawed at him. His executives had spent months discussing passenger satisfaction, but Robert felt disconnected from the realities of those who traveled on his airline. The stories he heard were often filtered through layers of corporate speak. Complaints about delays, lost luggage, and the treatment of passengers felt like mere statistics on a spreadsheet. He longed to experience his airline service firsthand. So, on a whim, he decided to fly anonymously. Disguising himself as an ordinary traveler, he slipped into casual clothes, a navy blue hoodie and jeans that were worn but comfortable. He booked a first-class ticket under an alias, Robert Palmer, and set his sights on Los Angeles. As Robert stepped into the vibrant chaos of the bustling airport, a torrent of emotions surged within him, an intoxicating blend of exhilaration and a creeping sense of trepidation that coiled tightly in his stomach. The air was electric, alive with the heady aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the murmurs and laughter of travelers, each with their own stories, their own destinies unfolding. As he navigated through the throngs of hurried people, he felt a rush of adrenaline course through his veins. Every moment was a dance between anonymity and the pulse of excitement that threatened to spill over. Passing through security, Robert maintained his composure, his carefully crafted disguise clinging to him like a second skin. Every glance, every fleeting encounter was a test of his resolve, but he emerged unscathed, a ghost among the living, his heart racing in sync with the whirring machinery of the airport. The first-class lounge loomed ahead like a sanctuary, a luxurious oasis amid the chaos. He crossed its threshold and sank into a sumptuous seat, the plush fabric enveloping him in a cocoon of comfort. Here, he allowed his senses to awaken fully. The soft clinking of fine glassware, the hushed tones of husky conversations, and the distant sound of laughter floated through the air like a delicate symphony. As Robert observed the other passengers, each a world unto themselves, lost in thought or engaged in animated discussions, he felt a thrill of anticipation building within him. What paths had led them here? What secrets did they harbor? In that moment, he realized he was not merely an observer. He was a player in a grand, unfolding drama, and the next act was about to begin. The world outside the lounge buzzed with possibility, and Robert was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, heart pounding, breath held, teetering on the edge of the unknown. He noted the stark differences in how staff interacted with the affluent travelers compared to those in coach. Priority boarding announcements seemed to be an invitation to a royal gala, while others were treated as if they were intruding on a private party. Robert's heart sank. He knew the statistics, how the airline had implemented a focus on customer service. But this was a disheartening revelation. He decided to let the experience unfold. As the boarding process commenced, the bustling airport terminal buzzed with the electric energy of anticipation. Robert stepped forward, aligning himself with the other first-class passengers, his heart pounding in rhythm with the thrumming of excitement that filled the air. He had long dreamed of this moment, a fleeting glimmer of recognition, a profound sense of validation that he so desperately craved. Would he finally be acknowledged for his hard work, for the countless hours spent toiling away in obscurity? But as he neared the counter, that glimmer was swiftly extinguished, replaced by a heavy shroud of skepticism that hung thick in the air. The gate agent, a young woman with piercing eyes that seemed to slice through pretense like a hot knife through butter, regarded him with a mixture of indifference and suspicion. Her sharp gaze was an unyielding blade, dissecting him with every scrutinizing glance, as if she could see right through his carefully constructed facade. Robert felt the weight of her stare, as though she were peeling away the layers of his identity, revealing the raw vulnerability beneath. The moment stretched into eternity, an unspoken challenge echoing between them. Would he rise to meet her gaze, or would he shrink back into the shadows, swallowed whole by the very doubt he had hoped to escape. "First class?" she asked, raising an eyebrow at his casual attire. "Yes, ma'am," he replied, flashing his boarding pass, though he felt a pang of unease. "I'll need to verify your status," she said, her tone laced with suspicion as her narrowed eyes examined him with the intensity of a hawk. The fluorescent lights above flickered slightly, casting an unflattering glare on her meticulously groomed hair. Her fingers tapped nervously against the polished surface of the reception desk, a rhythm that seemed to echo the unease in the air. Without another word, she picked up the sleek black phone, her fingers hovering over the buttons for a moment longer than necessary, as if deliberating the weight of her decision. As she dialed, the hum of the building enveloped them, punctuated by distant sounds of conversations and the steady beeping of machines in the background. A moment later, her voice transformed into a sharp command, a contrast to the previous tension. "Security? I need you to run a check on an individual at the front desk." "Yes, right now." Her eyes never left the man before her, who stood with an air of defiance, his hands shoved deep into the pockets of his worn leather jacket. The seconds stretched, feeling like hours as she continued to scrutinize him. He was an enigma wrapped in a shadow, his face a mixture of charm and something darker, something that made her instincts flare. She recalled the recent incidents of identity theft that had plagued the facility, the news reports flashing through her mind like a reel of horror. The last thing she wanted was to let someone slip through the cracks, someone who could wreak havoc. He leaned casually against the desk, but the tension in his posture betrayed him. There was a flicker of impatience in his eyes, a hint of vulnerability buried beneath layers of bravado. She could sense it, that unspoken story of a man who might have lost everything or perhaps was searching for something. Yet, she had a job to do, and caution was her only ally. Moments later, her phone buzzed with the voice of a security officer on the line. "We're running a background check now. Can you describe the individual?" Her heart raced as she prepared to provide details, acutely aware of the potential consequences of her next words. "The male is approximately 6 feet tall, with dark hair and a stubble that suggests he hasn't shaved in a couple of days. He's wearing a leather jacket and has an oddly charming smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes," she replied, feeling a flicker of guilt for her judgment, but firmly believing in the necessity of protocol. As she awaited the security team's response, the man raised an eyebrow, a smirk playing on his lips. "You don't really think I'm a threat, do you?" His voice was smooth, almost playful, but there was a depth there that sent shivers down her spine. "I think it's my responsibility to find out," she said, meeting his gaze with unwavering resolve. The dance of power between them was palpable, and the stakes felt higher than ever as the truth loomed just out of reach, hidden behind a veil of uncertainty and suspicion. Robert felt the weight of embarrassment settle on his shoulders. As he waited, he could sense the eyes of the surrounding passengers on him. Some looked concerned. Others seemed to relish the drama. Finally, his assistant, Maria, arrived. "Robert," she exclaimed, hurrying to his side. "What's going on?" The gate agent glared at Robert, her stance resolute. "I'm just ensuring everyone is where they're supposed to be." Maria's eyes widened in shock, the weight of the revelation crashing down on her like a tidal wave. The room seemed to hold its breath, every heart in it pausing as if time itself had decided to stop. With a steadying breath, she squared her shoulders, determination blazing in her gaze. "Do you know who you're speaking to?" she asked, her voice calm but laced with an underlying tension, each word carefully measured. "This is Robert Isom, CEO of American Airlines." The name hung in the air, heavy with the gravity of his status, the very embodiment of power in the aviation industry. Whispers of disbelief rippled through the gathered crowd, their faces a mix of awe and apprehension as they realized the magnitude of the moment. Maria stood resolute, a defiant figure against the storm of surprise and uncertainty, ready to confront whatever consequences this revelation might unleash. Gasps filled the space. The gate agent's face turned crimson as she stammered an apology. Robert held up a hand to calm the rising tension. "Wait," he said, Turning to face the crowd that had gathered, "Let's not make this about me. This moment is a lesson for all of us." He could see the mixture of confusion and intrigue on their faces. "I chose to fly today as a passenger like anyone else, and I believe everyone deserves respect, regardless of their appearance or perceived status. We're all human beings traveling from one place to another." His voice was steady, resonating with sincerity. "I understand that first-class passengers are often treated differently, but that's not the culture I want for my airline. Respect should not be a privilege reserved for a select few. It should be the baseline for every interaction." The tension in the air shifted. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, and Robert's words ignited a spark of conversation among passengers. A few even began to applaud. The incident went viral within hours. News outlets picked up the story of the anonymous CEO who had been publicly humiliated only to turn the experience into a profound lesson on empathy and respect. Robert became an unlikely hero, his message resonating beyond the confines of the airport. Back at the corporate office, discussions ensued about how to implement systemic changes within the airline. Robert held meetings with key departments, focusing on eliminating bias and promoting inclusivity. He proposed training programs for all staff that emphasized empathy, encouraging them to recognize and celebrate the diversity of their passengers. "The lesson here," he told his team, "is that it's not just about providing a service. It's about creating a culture of dignity for everyone who steps onto our planes." Weeks later, Robert received a heartfelt email from the gate agent, whose name he learned was Sarah. She expressed a regret for the way she had treated him and shared how the incident had prompted her to reflect on her actions. "Your words shattered the illusion I had carefully constructed around myself," she wrote, her fingers trembling as she typed. "With every line, you peeled back the layers of my ignorance, exposing the stark reality of my biases and the pain they may have caused. I feel a deep, aching remorse not just towards you, but to every soul who has ever been marginalized, belittled, or disrespected while exploring this vast world. The thought of my actions adding to someone's struggle is a weight I can no longer bear. I vow to do better, to listen more intently, and to walk with humility and respect. I owe it to you and to everyone who deserves to travel freely, without fear of prejudice or judgment. My journey of growth begins now, and I promise to carry this lesson with me always." Robert was moved by her honesty. He replied, encouraging her to embrace the opportunity for growth and offering to support her development in customer service. With the company's renewed focus on empathy, Robert introduced a passenger feedback program that allowed travelers to share their experiences directly. The initiative was an instant success. Comments poured in, both praising staff and highlighting areas for improvement. It became a vital tool for gauging the airline's progress. As Robert continued to engage with both staff and passengers, he realized that the culture he had long sought was blossoming. Employees felt empowered to treat each passenger as a valued individual, and passengers began to notice the change. Compliments and stories of kindness became more common, and the atmosphere on flights transformed. Months later, as Robert walked through the same terminal he had once observed with a sense of detachment, he felt a wave of pride. He noticed the smiles exchanged between staff and passengers, the genuine greetings, and the sense of community that had developed. The experience that had begun as a simple journey had turned into a movement. Robert understood that leadership was not just about steering a company toward profit. It was about fostering a culture of respect and kindness. As he boarded another flight, this time as the CEO of American Airlines, he felt lighter. The weight of responsibility had been lifted, replaced by a sense of accomplishment and excitement for the future. He smiled at the flight attendants who greeted him warmly, their faces radiating genuine enthusiasm, a stark contrast to the high-stress environment he often navigated in boardrooms. He found a seat among the first-class passengers, appreciating the plush surroundings and attentive service that came with it. Today, he was just one of many, and he relished every moment. The cabin buzzed with the chatter of travelers, laughter, and the clinking of glasses, creating a vibrant atmosphere that reminded him of why he loved this industry. As he settled in, he took a moment to observe the diverse group around him. A family excitedly discussing their vacation plans, a businessman typing furiously on his laptop, and a couple sharing stories of their travels. Each passenger had their own journey, their own dreams, and he felt a sense of connection to them all. He gazed out the window, watching the ground recede as the aircraft ascended into the sky. The clouds billowed like cotton candy, and for a fleeting moment, he lost himself in the beauty of it all. This was more than just a job. It was a passion that spanned decades, a commitment to connecting people and places. As the flight attendants began serving drinks, he took a sip of the crisp Chardonnay, savoring its flavor while mentally reviewing the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead for the airline. There were innovations to embrace, sustainability initiatives to champion, and the ever-present goal of enhancing customer experience. But for now, he allowed himself to disconnect from the intricacies of corporate strategy. Today was about enjoying the journey, both literally and metaphorically. He leaned back in his seat, closed his eyes for a moment, and let the hum of the engine soothe him, feeling grateful for the privilege of flying and the chance to lead such an iconic airline into a new era. The journey was ongoing, but Robert knew they were heading in the right direction, one flight at a time.